March 5th, 1953. Joseph Stalin dies in his dacha outside Moscow. Within hours, a secret convoy of trucks rolls out from the Kremlin's underground vaults. By dawn, they've vanished into the Ural Mountains. Inside those trucks, an estimated $300 billion worth of gold bars, precious gems, and looted treasures accumulated over 3 decades of Soviet power. This gold would never appear in any official Soviet records. It simply disappeared. The story of Stalin's missing gold begins in the chaos of World War II and ends in the power struggles that followed his death. But here's what makes it different from every other missing treasure story. This wasn't a myth or a legend. Soviet financial records show massive gold reserves in 1945. By 1954, those same reserves had been reduced by nearly 80%. Where did it go? Former NKVD officers who defected to the West in the 1960s told intelligence agencies about secret gold shipments that happened in the final days of Stalin's life. They spoke of underground facilities that didn't appear on any map, of trusted couriers who were later found dead under mysterious circumstances, of bank accounts in neutral countries that could never be traced back to Moscow. The official Soviet response was always the same. These stories were Western propaganda designed to undermine socialism. But the numbers didn't lie. In 1945, the Soviet State Bank reported holding 2,800 tons of gold. By 1954, only 600 tons remained in the vaults. That's 2,200 tons of gold that had to go somewhere. At today's prices, that's over $300 billion worth of precious metal. This isn't just a story about missing gold. It's about power, paranoia, and the secret deals that shaped the Cold War. It's about what happens when absolute power meets absolute greed. And it starts not in 1953, but decades earlier, when a young revolutionary named Stalin first learned the true value of gold. June 26, 1907, Tiflis, Georgia. A 28-year-old Stalin orchestrates the robbery of a Russian imperial bank carriage. His gang steals 341,000 rubles, equivalent to $3.4 million today. Dozens die in the explosion and gunfight that follows. This single act teaches Stalin 2 crucial lessons. Gold moves power, and violence protects secrets. He would apply both lessons for the rest of his life. Fast forward to 1917. The Bolsheviks seize power and immediately confiscate the imperial gold reserves. Tsar Nicholas II had accumulated one of the world's largest gold holdings, over 1,300 tons stored in Moscow, St. Petersburg, and Kazan. Lenin puts Stalin in charge of securing these reserves. It's his first major government position, and he takes it seriously. But here's where the story gets interesting. During the Russian Civil War from 1918 to 1922, multiple factions claimed parts of the imperial gold reserve. White armies take some. The Czechoslovak Legion captures a portion. Foreign interventionists help themselves. By 1922, when the war ends, nearly 500 tons of gold have vanished from official records. No one can account for it. Stalin watches all of this carefully. He sees how chaos creates opportunity, how a revolution is the perfect cover for personal enrichment. Years later, when he consolidates power in the late 1920s, he begins building his own secret system, parallel to the official Soviet economy, a system known only to a handful of trusted NKVD officers. The 1930s bring Stalin new sources of gold. First, the forced collectivization of agriculture allows him to seize valuables from millions of kulak families. Church gold, jewelry, icons, everything goes into the state coffers. Then come the Great Purges. Every arrested enemy of the people has their property confiscated. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people. But Stalin doesn't stop at internal sources. He sells grain abroad even during the Ukrainian famine, earning millions in foreign currency. He exports timber, oil, and minerals at rock-bottom prices to generate hard currency. All of it flows into gold purchases. By 1940, Soviet gold reserves reached their pre-revolution levels. The official numbers show 2,800 tons. The real number may have been higher. Then, World War II changes everything. On June 22, 1941, Hitler invades. Within months, German forces advance toward Moscow. Stalin faces a crisis. His gold reserves are stored in vaults that could fall to the Nazis. He orders an emergency evacuation. Trains carry gold east to the Urals and beyond, to places like Sverdlovsk and Novosibirsk. Here's where the official story and reality start to diverge. According to Soviet records, all gold was properly documented and stored in designated state bank facilities in the Urals. But eyewitnesses, railway workers, local officials, later reported something different. They saw gold being unloaded at locations that weren't banks, old mines, abandoned factories, remote military installations. Stalin personally oversees the evacuation of what he calls special reserves. These aren't recorded in any official ledger. His most trusted aide, Alexander Poskryubyshev, coordinates the operation with a small group of NKVD officers. Every person involved signs a document swearing them to absolute secrecy under penalty of death. Most of them won't survive the war. The war also brings new gold into Stalin's hands. As the Red Army pushes west from 1943 onward, they liberate and loot occupied territories. Nazi gold taken from concentration camps, Hungarian treasury reserves, Romanian wealth, Polish treasures. The official policy is to return everything to rightful owners. The reality is more complicated. A Soviet trophy brigade officer who defected in 1948 told American intelligence about special NKVD units that followed the Red Army. Their job? Identify and secure valuable items before anyone else arrived. They operated separately from regular military logistics. They reported directly to Moscow. And they moved incredible amounts of gold, art, and precious materials. By May 1945, when Germany surrenders, Stalin controls more wealth than any leader in Soviet history. The state bank records show 2,800 tons of gold, the same figure as 1940. But that can't be right. The war should have depleted reserves. Instead, they remained stable despite massive military spending, unless new gold came in that wasn't being recorded. The post-war years mark Stalin's most paranoid period. He trusts no one, not his generals who won the war, not his deputies who ran the state, not even his personal security detail. He begins to suspect that people know too much about his secret wealth accumulation. The people who helped move and hide the gold during the war become liabilities. Between 1945 and 1950, over 200 NKVD officers involved in wartime financial operations die under mysterious circumstances. Car accidents, sudden heart attacks, suicides, arrests on fabricated charges followed by execution. Each death removes another person who knew about the secret gold movements. Each death makes the trail harder to follow. But Stalin isn't just eliminating witnesses, he's also moving gold again. Starting in 1948, mysterious shipments leave the Ural storage facilities. The manifests list them as industrial equipment or geological samples. They travel to remote locations in Siberia. Some go to installations near the Chinese border. Others disappear into the Arctic. Why move gold to such remote locations? Former Soviet intelligence officers later suggested Stalin was preparing for multiple scenarios. If he died, the gold would be beyond reach of his successors. If World War III started, he'd have resources the state couldn't access. If he needed to flee, he'd have wealth waiting. Paranoia breeds contingency plans. In 1949, Stalin takes an unusual step. He orders the creation of what he calls special accounts in Swiss and Swedish banks. The accounts are opened through shell companies with no apparent connection to the Soviet Union. They're designed to be accessible only through specific authorization codes, codes that Stalin keeps in his personal safe. The logistics of moving gold abroad are complex. Stalin uses trusted couriers from the diplomatic corps. They carry small quantities, never enough to attract attention, on regular trips to Europe. Over 3 years, they move an estimated 150 to 200 tons this way. Each courier believes they're the only one doing this work. None survive past 1953. By 1952, Stalin's health is failing. He's 73 years old and has suffered multiple strokes. His paranoia reaches new heights with the doctor's plot, his belief that Jewish doctors are trying to kill him. But in his few moments of clarity, he's obsessed with one thing: securing his gold before death. He knows the succession struggle will be brutal. In January 1953, Stalin summons his most loyal officer, Major General Pavel Sudoplatov, head of special NKVD operations. They meet alone at Stalin's dacha. No guards, no witnesses. The meeting lasts 4 hours. Sudoplatov emerges pale and shaken. 1 week later, he oversees the loading of military trucks at a secure Kremlin facility. February 1953. The trucks make multiple trips over 6 weeks. They drive at night, following routes that avoid populated areas. Each convoy consists of 3 vehicles with military escort. They're supposedly carrying classified documents to secure archives. But the weight of these documents requires reinforced trucks. And documents don't need to be stored in blast-proof underground bunkers. March 1st, 1953. Stalin suffers a massive stroke at his dacha. His guards find him lying on the floor of his room, unable to speak. They're too terrified to call for help immediately. Entering without permission could mean death. By the time doctors arrive, 12 hours have passed. Stalin's brain damage is severe. He has 4 days to live. During those 4 days, something remarkable happens. While doctors attend to dying Stalin, someone enters his private safe. They remove specific documents, codes, account numbers, locations. The safe shows no signs of forced entry. Whoever opened it knew the combination. But Stalin is unconscious and dying. So who had the combination? March 5th, 1953, 9:50 p.m. Stalin dies. Within 2 hours, the power struggle begins. Lavrenti Beria, head of the NKVD, moves fastest. He orders his men to secure certain locations immediately. Not government buildings, not military bases. Remote facilities in the Urals, Arctic installations. Places that aren't on any official map. But Beria isn't the only one who knows about Stalin's secret system. Nikita Khrushchev, Georgy Malenkov, and Vyacheslav Molotov have also picked up fragments of information over the years. Each realizes that whoever controls Stalin's hidden wealth controls the succession. The race is on, and violence is inevitable. March 6th, 1953. Less than 24 hours after Stalin's death, Pavel Sudoplatov is arrested. The charges are vague: anti-Soviet activities. He's taken to Lefortovo prison and placed in solitary confinement. He's never allowed to speak to anyone about his final meeting with Stalin. He'll spend the next 15 years in prison. Over the next 3 months, 47 other officers connected to Stalin's special operations die or disappear. Some are executed, some commit suicide, some simply vanish. Every death erases more institutional knowledge about the secret gold network. It's a systematic purge disguised as normal bureaucratic turnover. June 26, 1953. Beria is arrested during a presidium meeting. The official charges include treason and conspiracy, but insiders know the real reason. Beria got closest to Stalin's gold network, and his rivals couldn't allow him to consolidate that power. He's executed 6 months later after a show trial. With his death, the most complete knowledge of the gold locations dies too. By late 1954, Khrushchev emerges as the dominant leader. One of his first actions is ordering a complete inventory of Soviet gold reserves. The results shock even him. Official records show 2,800 tons in 1945. Now only 600 tons can be physically accounted for. That's 2,200 tons missing, over $300 billion at today's prices. Khrushchev launches a secret investigation. KGB teams search remote facilities across the USSR. They find abandoned bunkers in the Urals, empty vaults in Siberia, suspicious installations near the Chinese border, some showing signs of recent evacuation. But no gold. The locations exist, the infrastructure is real, but the treasure has vanished. The investigation reveals something else. During the chaos of March 1953, multiple unauthorized convoys left various facilities. They moved during Stalin's final days and immediately after his death. Military records show unusual vehicle requisitions. Fuel depots report unexplained withdrawals. But no one knows where these convoys went. Khrushchev faces an impossible choice. Admitting the truth would undermine the Soviet state's credibility. How could the Communist Party lose track of the nation's gold reserves? How could one man accumulate such power and wealth in secrecy? The political cost would be catastrophic. So he makes a different decision. In 1955, the Soviet government announces that wartime record-keeping was imperfect due to evacuation and chaos. The discrepancies in gold reserves are explained as accounting errors. The official line becomes that reserves were used for wartime expenses and reconstruction. The investigation is classified. The files are sealed for 50 years. But the truth has a way of leaking out. In the late 1950s and 1960s, several NKVD and KGB officers defect to the West. Each brings fragments of the story. None has complete knowledge. Stalin designed it that way. But together, their testimonies paint a picture. Western intelligence agencies become very interested. The CIA launches Operation Gold Rush, an attempt to track Stalin's missing treasure. They use satellite imagery to identify suspicious facilities. They interview refugees who worked at remote Soviet installations. They analyze financial flows through neutral countries. They discover Swiss bank accounts opened in 1949 that show no activity after 1953. The Swiss accounts are particularly interesting. Through diplomatic pressure and covert operations, the CIA learns that several accounts containing substantial gold deposits remain dormant. They're still legally active but haven't been accessed since early 1953. The access codes were apparently never transmitted to any Soviet successor. The gold just sits there. Where did the rest of the gold go? Former KGB officers interviewed in the 1990s after the Soviet collapse suggested several possibilities. Some believe Beria managed to move significant quantities abroad before his arrest. Others think Stalin's family, his daughter Svetlana or other relatives, were given access. A few suggest the Chinese Communist Party received shipments as secret aid. The Chinese theory has some evidence. In 1953 and 1954, China's gold reserves increased significantly despite the country's economic struggles. Soviet advisors in China reported seeing unusual financial transactions they couldn't explain. And Stalin had been planning for various contingencies. Depositing wealth with Communist China would ensure it stayed beyond American reach. But perhaps the most plausible theory is the simplest. Stalin's most trusted couriers succeeded in their final mission. They moved the gold to locations so remote and so secret that even the KGB couldn't find them. Siberia is vast. The Arctic is unforgiving. Thousands of abandoned mines and military facilities dot the landscape. The story of Stalin's missing gold never really ended. Even today, treasure hunters and researchers pursue leads across the former Soviet Union. In 2003, a mining expedition in the Ural Mountains discovered an abandoned bunker containing 1940s-era documents referencing special reserves. The bunker was empty, but the documents proved the secret network existed. In 2011, Russian historians gained access to previously classified NKVD files. They found references to operations codenamed Special Reserve, Deep Cache, and Final Contingency. Each operation involved moving valuable materials to secure locations. The files list dozens of officers involved, all deceased by 1954. But they don't reveal the locations. The Swiss bank accounts remain one of the mystery's most tantalizing aspects. According to Swiss banking law, accounts can remain dormant for decades. Some of the accounts opened in 1949 with apparent Soviet connections still exist today. Banks won't confirm details, but financial researchers estimate these accounts could contain assets worth billions. Why does this matter today? Because it reveals how power actually works behind the curtain of ideology. Stalin presented himself as a revolutionary fighting for the working class. Though privately, he accumulated more personal wealth than any capitalist. The hypocrisy was staggering. And the methods he used, violence, secrecy, paranoia, set patterns that continue in authoritarian states today. The missing gold also shows what happens when power becomes absolutely concentrated. Stalin didn't trust the state he built. He created a parallel system because he knew institutions could betray him. When he died, that parallel system collapsed because it was built around one person. The wealth disappeared because there was no legitimate structure to preserve it. Modern Russia has made little effort to pursue the missing gold, perhaps because finding it would raise uncomfortable questions. How much wealth did the Soviet state really control? Where else might valuable assets be hidden? What other secrets from that era remain buried? Some questions, it seems, are better left unasked. Yet the fascination persists. Every few years, someone claims to have discovered a Stalin gold cache. In 2018, a Siberian farmer reported finding gold bars while digging a well. Tests showed they dated to the 1940s. How did they get there? No one knows. But they prove that somewhere in the vastness of the former Soviet Union, more gold waits to be found. The question isn't whether Stalin's gold exists. The math proves it must be somewhere. The question is whether anyone alive today knows where to look. Did Stalin's system work too well? Did he succeed in creating a secret so perfect that it died with him? Or are there still people, descendants of his inner circle, who possess the knowledge? What we know for certain is this. Between 1945 and 1954, approximately 2,200 tons of gold disappeared from Soviet records. That's roughly $300 billion in today's value. It didn't evaporate. It didn't get spent on documented state expenses. It went somewhere, moved by people who took those secrets to their graves. This story reminds us that history isn't always written by the winners. Sometimes, it's rewritten by them. Stalin's successors couldn't admit the truth about the missing gold because it would have undermined their legitimacy, so they buried it with classification and misdirection. The real history became a secret as well guarded as the gold itself. Perhaps the greatest irony is that Stalin, who trusted no one and planned for every contingency, may have outsmarted himself. His paranoia led him to create a system so secret that even his heirs couldn't access it. His final victory over his enemies was also his final defeat. The wealth he accumulated so ruthlessly remains beyond anyone's reach. Will Stalin's gold ever be found? Maybe. The Soviet archives continue to be declassified. Technology improves, making remote sensing more effective. Old soldiers and spies occasionally share deathbed confessions. Each year brings new possibilities. But each year also takes us further from 1953, making the trail colder. What remains undeniable is this. Stalin's missing gold represents one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. Not a treasure map from a pirate tale, but a real fortune worth hundreds of billions, systematically accumulated and deliberately hidden by one of the 20th century's most powerful men. Somewhere in the vast expanses of Russia, in a forgotten bunker or abandoned mine, that gold waits. The story of Stalin's gold is ultimately a story about power's true nature. It shows how easily ideology becomes a mask for greed, how paranoia breeds systems that consume themselves, how secrets, when guarded too well, become impossible to unlock, and how the pursuit of absolute control leads to absolute loss.
Thanks for watching, and thanks for all your likes, comments, and subscriptions. Let me know in the comments what you want me to cover next.